I know that this doesn't match this, but I mean, if you know, you know. If you saw the game that just finished, you know what happened. But I'm not going to go into detail about it because that's just not what this video is for. But if you know, you know. But on a different note, we have one last thing to finish off because I'm a little bit behind on this, and I apologize, but things have been going on lately. But I have gotten a written review, and I have all the bullet points for the summary. So, welcome back to Mixed Station. Welcome back to Slayer-Tember. Let's finish off the anime portion of Slayer-Tember with the Hashira training arc of Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. Again, if you know, you know. But this is an arc that I've heard nothing but absolute trash for, like, all the time. All people want to do is trash talk this arc relentlessly. So, obviously, when I went into it, about a day or two ago, I was obviously concerned that I would be the same way, and it would be the big drop-off in quality that so many leave it to believe. But no, this is another great arc. Is it on the lower tier of Demon Slayer? Yes, but the Demon Slayer quality tier is so high that even its lowest stuff is still quality. Like, this is still a great arc, and there's still a lot to discuss. So, without any more further ado or delay, let's run through all the bullet points at rapid speed. Here we go. Senemi and Obanai fight off an army of demons in a temple using wind and serpent breathing. Pretty cool seeing both of those fused together. They save the girl that was captured, but the demon then escapes to the Infinity Castle, cluing them in on its first... This is the first time they've ever seen it with their own eyes, so they obviously don't know what it is. Once she returned from a mission, Kanao is then tasked by Shinobu to protect Nezuko, because now Muzan wants her to consume her to, conquer the sun, yada yada yada. The Hashira have an emergency meeting and learn that they'll never see Kagaya again, because Kagaya has gotten so bad with his health that he can't even walk. Amani tells them about the marks of awakening, asking Mitsuri and Muchiro to explain theirs. After Mitsuri hilariously fails to explain hers, Obanai explains what he knows of it. Then Muchiro tells how he met the required conditions after Obanai explains them. The Hashira vow to awaken the rest of their marks, beginning a brand new training regimen. Zenitsu returns from his mission greeted by the girls and Nezuko calls him Inosuke. One of the funniest moments in the entire show. A flashback shows Inosuke teaching Nezuko how to say his name, which is just adorable. Tanjiro is finally given his finished sword by Haganesuka, now with Rengoku's guard on it. Inosuke charges through the window, ordering Tanjiro a brute strength training, as he calls it, even though it has a different name, but we'll get there when we get there. Inosuke and Zenitsu begin training while Tanjiro recovers from his injuries, and Tengen is brought back to aid the Hashira in their teaching, with the stamina part of the training. While the Hashira train the Demon Corps, Tanjiro is alerted by Crow of Giyu's absence from it, because in an earlier scene at that meeting, Giyu refused to participate. And we find out later it's because he has this deep resenting guilt for an event we're about to talk about. Alright. Tamio is then summoned by Kagaya's Crow to the HQ, which ends episode 56. Then Nin number 21 shows Shinobu being passionate to Inosuke and Mitsuri. Then Tamio and Yushiro leave their safe haven and travel to the Demon Slayer HQ, and that is the last that we see of them until the final episode of the arc. Yeah, a bit weird that they're even here at all. Kagaya asks Tanjiro via letter to speak to Giyu and try to bring him back to HQ. As Tanjiro leaves, Aoi gives him some food to take on his journey. Once he arrives, Giyu explains he's upset that Tanjiro didn't become the next Water Hashira, as he thought that Urokodaki was training him to do. Then Giyu continuously orders Tanjiro to leave, but as Kagaya had advised, Tanjiro remains persistent and doesn't. Then, after a while, Giyu finally tells him of the guilt he feels for Sabato's death, as it's revealed that both of them were best friends, and how he himself never passed final selection, and was only escalated to Hashira on a technicality. Tanjiro then asks Giyu if Sabato would want him to pass on his knowledge, and this is what finally gets Giyu to open up his walls and actually you know, take down his mental walls and actually consider going back to training and keep doing what he thinks Sabato would want him to do. A flashback then shows Giyu being reprimanded by Sabato's ghost for his survivor's guilt. Again, this show's really good with its adult stuff, man. Seriously. Giyu agrees to join training as Tanjiro then challenges him to an eating contest before he even finishes speaking, because he had no clue that Giyu was even going to approve of it, so he just out of nowhere challenges him to an eating contest. Tanjiro being Tanjiro and accidentally jumping the gun. Shinobu tells Kanao she won't be joining Hashira training, and also decides to tell her about the demon that killed her sister, which we later find out is Doma, and how she's been training Kanao this entire time to kill this demon. Ending episode 57. Then Nin number 22 shows Tanjiro explaining how half of Giyu's kimono came from each of his fallen friends. Which I thought that was already obvious, but cool to have a little bit of extra context. Tanjiro then finally begins his Hashira training now that his wounds are healed up enough, starting with Tengen's stamina training. After lamenting about their last missions, Sanemi and Obanai challenge each other to a match later that night. Then Tengen begins the final lesson of his training, tasking Tanjiro with defeating him and protecting his comrades. And from what the cutaway tells us, they did fail the training, but they all vow to get stronger to aid the fight in the end. Very cool to see some of the cadets finally get some of their nerve back after seeing Tanjiro defend them. Tanjiro then completes Tengen's training and moves on to Mushiro's, ending episode 58. Then Ninden number 23 shows Tanjiro explaining Tengen's love for hot springs. Yeah, they're kind of just rolling off random facts about the Hashira and these Nindens from here on out. Tanjiro starts his rapid movement training, while Sanemi and Obanai begin their match, and then once that's concluded later that night, they both spar together against Muchiro in a 2v1 fight, as it's revealed that he has been going there every single night after training for extra training. Then with the spar complete, they lament on how fast Tanjiro is healing up by the day. After 5 days, Tanjiro completes Muchiro's training and challenges him to a paper airplane contest. Tanjiro does lose at first, but it inspires his comrades to join in as well, which leads to a scene of all the paper planes they make fly together simultaneously in a beautiful symbolization of unity. Very beautiful moment. Then Urukadaki is revealed to be protecting Nezuko as Tanjiro vows to keep training and gain stronger, ending episode 59. Then a post-credit scene shows Tanjiro arriving at Mitsuri's, who welcomes him with open arms and makes him pancakes. Mitsuri just can't help being adorable. Same with Nezuko. Ninden number 24 then shows Tanjiro talking about Michiro's toughness. Then Mitsuri feeds Tanjiro a delicious homemade pancake and then starts flexibility training. Tanjiro completes it in a day after having all his bones cracked. Then moves on to Obanai's sword skill revision training. And Obanai ends up going harsher on Tanjiro than everyone else because the day before he had gotten a letter from Mitsuri calling Tanjiro cute. And since Obanai is crushing on Mitsuri, obviously he gets jealous and decides to make him go through worse things than the rest of the cadets are going through. Don't you just love the jealousy love subplots that don't even lead to anything? And what's funny is that Tanjiro the entire time doesn't even know why he's mad. Tanjiro struggles against the harsh training, this being the hardest training that he's received so far, trying not to injure his comrades who are being used as obstacles. Because Obanai really is that salty and that pissed off from one letter. After many days, Tanjiro finally completes Obanai's training and moves on to Senemi's. And that does not go well because Senemi is an absolute asshole. And then later on, Genya tells Senemi that he's eaten demons, which is also kind of sort of explaining how he became a demon in the last arc, even though it's not explained well. I know it's explained in the manga, but we're talking anime specific here. Anime specific, this is a very shitty explanation. Which causes him to lash out in anger. Then Tanjiro narrowly saves his life because he was about to gouge out his eyes, crashing through the wall in front of the comrades. Tanjiro then stands up for Genya despite being full of bruises and all kinds of injuries, and engages in a hand-to-hand fight with Senemi, and then it escalates into a full-on brawl with all the cadets, and then Tanjiro ends up being reprimanded by the higher-ups for it, and suspended from Senemi's training. And since Zenitsu was also keeping Genya away this entire time, he also technically got involved. He got an earful from the higher-ups, and he also got kicked out of Senemi's training. So yeah, in conclusion, Senemi is an asshole, and by far the most despisable of all the Hashira. So with Zenitsu kicked out as well, the two of them move on to the final bit of training, which is Gyome's. Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke begin their muscle amplification training, ending episode 60. Then Din number 25 shows Tanjiro telling the audience that Obanai's snake is named Kaburimaru, however the hell you pronounce that. After 6 days of being unable to move a boulder, Genya then visits Tanjiro. Genya explains to Tanjiro how he moved his boulder, emphasizing predetermined actions. After he leaves, Tanjiro manages to move it a small bit, showing progress after having taken Genya's words into account, till he has to stop and make dinner again for the cadets, because he also made it the previous morning, and all the cadets really like his cooking. During dinner, Tanjiro and Genya chat about how Tanjiro's mark is powered by emotion. Then after dinner, Tanjiro uses repetitive motion, Rengoku's last words, and predetermined actions that he's been trying to, get his body to be accustomed to finally push the boulder. Then, elsewhere, Muzan vows to end Kagaya no matter the cost, ending episode 61. Nin number 26 shows Tanjiro explaining Gyome's constant crying. And there's actually a really good explanation behind it, but I won't dare ruin it, for those that haven't seen this yet. As Inosuke also pushes his boulder, Zenitsu ends up receiving a letter, which very much pisses him off, and gets him to go into locked-in badass warrior mode, even though he's still wide awake. And we are not going to find out the reason for why until Infinity Castle. So for now, it's kind of just a weird background setup thing. But yeah, that's going to get explained in Infinity Castle. So we'll save it for till then. Then Tanjiro finally completes his Hashira training as he finishes pushing the boulder, earning Gyome's respect, but also almost dying of dehydration. Then Inosuke... I'm going backwards, sorry. Flashback shows how Gyome lost his orphan family and became a Hashira, after he was wrongfully accused of murder by the one girl that he managed to save, because she thought that he was a monster, because he absolutely went to town on this demon that killed the rest of his orphan family. But then Kagaya saved him, pulled him out of jail, and managed to turn him into a Hashira. And seriously, Gyome gets some great character development. I can't do it justice no matter what words come out of my speaking hole. You just gotta see it for yourself. Tanjiro promises to keep doing his best, returning to the house to eat lunch with Genya and Inosuke. Genya explains how Shinobu healed him after the battle in Swordsmith Village, and how he's now become an assistant for Gyome. Then Inosuke insults Genya for not pushing his boulder, causing an argument to break out. And a little bit of a physical altercation, but it's more played for laughs. After Zenitsu turned down his sympathy because of that letter, which again we're not going to get explained until Infinity Castle, Tanjiro moves on to Gyu's for his final training. Tanjiro arrives at Gyu's only to find him sparring with Senemi, the one person he was literally not supposed to be around. It ends in a draw, and for trying to interfere, Tanjiro's knocked out by Senemi again. You see why I don't like this guy? He is an absolute egregious asshole. Then later that night, Senemi realizes that Muzan's eyeball scouts that have been constantly surveying the city outside of the mansion for a while now, they have found the mansion, realizing they have been infiltrated. And then Muzan enters the Ubuyashiki mansion, ending episode 62. And a post-credits scene shows Muzan and Kagaya finally meeting in person. Then Nin number 27 shows Tanjiro explaining Senemi's favorite meal. Okay, we're almost done. Bear with me. Muzan then laments on how, despite everything, he feels no hatred for Kagaya. And then after he says everything that he's wanted to say, and what's arguably one of the best speeches in the entire show, I can't even do it justice. It's another one of those things you just gotta see for yourself, but it is awesome. Kagaya and his family accept death, as Kagaya then blows up the entire mansion, killing himself, his family, and gravely injuring Muzan. To the point where he's literally destroyed his entire suit, and a grand majority of the top of his body. And because those explosives were also rigged with ninja stars that were poisoned with wisteria, that also slows down his regeneration. But he slowly regenerates as all the Hashira and Tanjiro arrive. Muzan then finds himself immediately immobilized by Tamayo's blood demon or blood seeds, who then shoves a deadly drug straight through his chest. This is when it starts getting really bloody. Tamayo then explains that the drug will turn him human again and then kill him from the inside out. Gyome then obliterates Muzan's head with his mace as he reflects on his first meeting with Kagaya. Anger burning in their souls from the loss of their master, all the Hashira and Tanjiro unite in one final strike. However, with no other way out, Muzan sends every single Slayer in the Demon Slayer Corps, regardless of location or where they are, all to the Infinity Castle. Everybody. Like, literally every single Slayer in the Corps is sent straight to the castle. Tanjiro, Inosuke, Zenitsu, the rest of the Corps, and all the Hashira are all sent simultaneously into the ever-changing Infinity Castle. Tanjiro then vows to defeat Muzan, ending episode 63, the arc in the anime, because from here on in, this franchise is going to finish off with movies. And I haven't heard anything about more recap arcs like they did with Mugen Train, so I think it's just going to finish off with 3 final movies. So, for the anime portion of Demon Slayer, this is the end, but it's not the end of the entire franchise. And yes, there is a difference. Then the final Nin shows Tanjiro telling the audience that Mitsuri was Rengoku's Sugiko, which is another word for training partner. And then Rengoku's spirit wishes them good luck as they begin their final confrontation with Muzan in the Infinity Castle. And that's the arc. Honestly, it's still pretty great. I still had a great time watching it, but I do have my fair share of gripes, which I will do my best to elaborate on in this final written review. I will say, though, that the opening in this one's also really good. Arguably the best in the franchise since the original opening. Okay, written review, let's finish this. This is it. After many days and nights spent, even longer than initially expected, I have finally gotten all caught up on Demon Slayer and am officially ready for the Infinity Castle. But first things first, it's time to review the final saga, the TV anime portion of the franchise, with the Hashira training arc. Even before I started watching it, I went in concerned because I've heard absolutely nothing but bad things about it from every single corner of the internet. However, thankfully by the time I finally finished watching it in full, I'm happy to say that all those reviews were dead wrong, and that this is yet another great arc for the franchise, and a strong arc to end the anime portion of this franchise on. That being said, though, I do have some gripes with it. It's not perfect, and it is still on the lower tier of these arcs. The ending, while awesome, is very rushed, since it doesn't happen until the final 2 episodes of the season. That's the one big gripe I have with this. It rushed the ending. Nezuko being absent this time instead of Zenitsu and Inosuke, after the first episode of the arc, explained definitely left a lingering presence. And maybe it's because Nezuko is my favorite character in the whole franchise, but yeah, I do wish that she wasn't sidelined. But I get why they did it, that way they had time to give more backstory to Genya and Gyome. So, I'm not gonna complain. Senemi is by far the least likable Hashira of them all, and a genuinely insufferable character that they waste way too much time on. I hate Senemi. Like, no offense to the voice actor, I hate this character. He is just a down-and-out asshole. And until Infinity Castle changes my mind, that is not going to change. Action takes a backseat yet again to character development and overall story. And its biggest issue of all, outside of the rushed ending, is juggling screen time between all the characters, causing the pacing to strangely bounce around. However, there's also a lot to like here, too. Zenitsu and Inosuke are finally back after being absent in the Swordsmith Village arc for pretty much no reason, The humor is some of the show's absolute funniest. The Hashira training itself is really cool to watch, especially the last one with Guillaume. Guillaume and Giyu get some incredible character development. The ending is a huge jaw-dropper that actually perfectly transitioned into Infinity Castle despite being rushed. Genya gets some great moments as he and Tanjiro finally become actual friends. Arukudaki coming back for a bit was a nice surprise. Animation is still phenomenal, but it's just so ufotable. And it's much shorter than the last two arcs at 8 episodes instead of 11. Thank the heavens for that, because I think if it was another 11 episode arc after having 2 back-to-back previously, I may or may not have died. Sure, it's not top tier or even close to the best of the series, but that doesn't mean it's as worthless as most review outlets like to have you believe. Ignore their nonsense and give it a chance before you judge it. It might just surprise you. Personally, even if it is still lower tier in terms of Demon Slayer, I personally still had a great time, and I can very easily recommend it if you haven't seen it yet. And that is why its final verdict is still going to be a high, strong, and well-deserved 8 out of 10. Yes, we're not finishing on the strongest note of this franchise, but it's still a pretty damn good arc to end the anime on. And that's it. We are officially caught up with Demon Slayer, and all that's left now is the spoiler-free review of Infinity Castle, which I will do that video whenever I actually get the chance to go out and see that. It may or may not be for a little while, so we may or may not be playing catch-up with SpongeBob and some other movie reviews, but I promise you, once I see Infinity Castle, I will absolutely put out a spoiler-free review. And then once it's out on Blu-ray in the next year or so, I'll do a full spoiler review like I did with Mugen Train. But for now, that's going to do it with our coverage of Demon Slayer until then, so thank you so much for watching. This has been a very, very exhilarating journey from start to finish, and I only hope that you have enjoyed yourself and have enjoyed me talking about this very highly acclaimed anime. One of my favorite anime of all time. It's right up there with the best of them. So, that's it, and for this channel, I'll see you next time when we start catching up on SpongeBob, and for this marathon, whenever it ends up happening next, I'll see you next time for the grand finale of Slayer-Tember with a spoiler-free review of the English dub release of Infinity Castle, Part 1. Remember, this is a 3-part finale, guys. It's not going to all finish in this one movie. But until then, thanks for watching, keep slaying, and I'll see you in the next review.